Somewhere in the last year, your child was replaced. Not gradually, overnight. The kid who used to show you every drawing, narrate every dream at breakfast, and follow you around the house like a small, anxious duckling, is gone. In his place is a stranger who communicates in grunts, treats his bedroom door like a national border, and looks at you, the person who kept him alive for 13 years, as if you personally invented embarrassment. And the worst part? You didn't do anything. You're pretty sure. You've replayed it. There was no fight, no incident. One day there was a child, the next there was this. So let me tell you what actually happened, because it is not disrespect, it is not your fault, and it is definitely not what you think. Here is what every parent secretly believes at this stage. My teenager hates me. He does not hate you. I know it looks exactly like hate. It has all the features of hate. But what you are looking at is not an emotion. It is a construction site, and you happen to be standing in it. Let me show you the machinery. Your teenager's brain is not a smaller, moodier version of an adult brain. It is a brain in the middle of the single most aggressive renovation of its entire life, and the two most important rooms are being worked on in the wrong order. Room 1, the amygdala, the alarm system, the part that feels things instantly and enormously. In a teenager, this room is fully online, fully staffed, and running at maximum volume. Room 2, the prefrontal cortex, the part that weighs consequences, plans ahead, and stops you from sending the text. This is the calm adult in the control room. Here is the punchline of human development. That calm adult does not finish arriving until about age 25. So for roughly a decade, your child is driving a car with a top-of-the-line accelerator, a world-class sound system, and brakes that are still, quote, in the mail. When he slams the door over something microscopic, he is not being dramatic on purpose. His alarm went off at full volume, and the guy whose job is to say, "This is not actually a catastrophe," is not at his desk yet. He genuinely feels it as an emergency. You are watching real neuroscience wearing a hoodie. The brain explains the mood swings. It does not explain why the mood swings are aimed at you. For that, we need one uncomfortable idea, and it is roughly 100 years old. A teenager's core biological job is to become a separate person, not a copy of you, a whole new, standalone human who can one day leave and survive without you. Psychologists call it individuation. Nature calls it the entire point. And here's the cruel design flaw. To build a self that is not you, he first has to push away the thing he was fused with, which is you. He cannot become his own person while he is still emotionally living inside yours. So he shoves. The pushing away is not rejection, it is construction. He is not leaving you, he is building a door, and you're just standing on the wrong side of it while he installs the hinges. Now that you know the machinery, let me translate the daily performance. Because every teenager, everywhere on Earth, runs the exact same script, and it's funnier once you have the subtitles. I'm fine. Translation: I am absolutely not fine, but I am currently a research subject in my own emotional experiment, and I have not finished collecting the data. The one-word answer. How was school? Fine. What did you do? Stuff. He is not hiding a secret life. He genuinely cannot yet convert an internal state into a sentence. The translator department is one of the rooms still under renovation. You just don't understand. This one actually hurts, so here's the truth. He's half right. You don't understand this specific feeling the way he needs you to, because to him it is brand new, and to you it is Tuesday. You've survived it. That's exactly why he doesn't believe you have. The door, the slammed bedroom door, is not a weapon. It is a border checkpoint on the new country he is building. He is not shutting you out of his life. He is applying, for the first time, for a life of his own. Because here's the thing nobody says. Teenagers run a predictable script, but so do we, and ours is just as automatic. There's the lecture. He says something small, and 45 seconds later, you are somehow delivering a State of the Union address about responsibility that you did not plan and cannot stop. There's, "When I was your age," a sentence that has never, in the history of the species, been followed by a teenager going, "Wow, tell me more." And there's the big one, taking it personally. Reading his individuation, a biological process older than language, as a review of your parenting. It isn't. He'd be doing this to whoever raised him. You just happen to be the incumbent. You're not failing, you're being promoted. From entire world to home base. It's a demotion in daily affection and a massive promotion in importance. He can only push off this hard from a wall he's completely sure will hold. All right, enough theory. Here is what actually works, and none of it is a trick. 1. Don't take the bait. When the alarm system brain fires at you, it is looking for a matching alarm to make the feeling real. If you stay calm, the storm has nothing to plug into. You be the prefrontal cortex he hasn't finished building yet. Borrow him yours. 2. Pick the battle that's actually a battle. The hair, the music, the messy room, that's identity construction, let it go. Safety, cruelty, and honesty, those are the walls, hold them completely. Most parents fight the paint and negotiate the foundations. Do the opposite. 3. Stay boring and available. He will not open up on your schedule, in a serious talk, sitting across a table. He'll open up sideways, in the car, at night, mid-video game, when you least expect it and are least prepared. Your only job is to be there when the door briefly opens and not make a big deal of it, or it closes. 4. Play the long game. You are not raising a teenager. You are raising the adult he becomes at 25 when that last room finally opens and the calm guy shows up. Everything you're doing now, he cannot appreciate yet. He will, just not while you can see it. 5. Repair out loud. You're going to lose it at some point. You'll deliver the lecture you swore you'd never deliver, in the exact voice your own mother used, and be completely unable to stop. That's fine. That isn't the damage. The damage is pretending it didn't happen. Go back 20 minutes later and say the unglamorous version. I was tired. I handled that badly. I'm sorry. No, but if you had just... The but cancels it, and he will notice. He's not learning how to never lose his temper. Nobody learns that. He's learning what a person does afterwards. And he'll only ever learn that from watching you. Here's what I can promise you, because the biology is on your side. This ends. The renovation finishes. The brakes arrive. The door he's building gets hung and, this is the part that gets me, once it's his door, once he's sure it's his, he starts opening it again. On his terms. As a person. And a strange thing happens. He comes back. Not as your duckling. As someone who chose you. The kid who won't talk to you today is not gone. He's just busy becoming someone worth talking to. And the fact that he trusts you enough to fall apart in front of you, while performing perfect politeness for the entire rest of the world, is not the evidence of a bad relationship. It's the evidence of the only safe one he has. So no, your teenager doesn't hate you. He's under construction. You're the wall he's testing, and the whole thing is going exactly, painfully, according to plan. If this made the last year make a little more sense, there's more where it came from. Subscribe, and I'll help you translate the rest of it. See you next time, and good luck with the door.